everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, your number one podcast for all things Assassin's Creed.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 106. In this episode, my dear co-host Declan wants to talk about time travel. So, do you know what, Declan? I'm not going to do one of my long, waffly introductions. I'm just going to say, over to you, mate. Tell me about time travel and Assassin's Creed, because Assassin's Creed isn't time travel.
Dun 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 dun. I think I have stumped you for once. No, Assassin's Creed isn't time travel. Never has been, but apparently Desmond Miles at one point was supposed to be a time traveller, but I'll get onto that in a minute.
Okay, I'm already interested.
See, what hook already. So, if listeners remember a while back, I did What If, where I looked at 5 different topics. What if Daniel Cross didn't betray the Brotherhood and they fell? And I mentioned briefly the Philadelphia Project, or Project Rainbow, which, if anybody knows anything, I do believe the Philadelphia Project is actually, I think it was a real-life project. Or am I thinking of the Manhattan Project?
Manhattan Project was the project that built the atomic bombs in World War II. The Philadelphia Project, I don't know if it was ever a real project, but I'm aware of the urban myth of the Philadelphia Project, where in theory or allegedly a US Navy ship was transported or dematerialized and rematerialized elsewhere, and there's kind of a horror stories about how crewmen were sort of sticking out of metal bulkheads and the ship was a mess and people were killed. But I'm pretty sure it's an urban myth, but maybe you'll tell me differently tonight.
Well, this is the great thing about Assassin's Creed. It is an urban myth, but of October 1943, and this is courtesy of my favourite book, the Assassin's Creed Essential Guide Part 2.
For those of you listening in, when we record these, we often have our... of course, we record the audio, and that's what you're listening to, but we have the cameras turned on so we can see each other's reactions and body language. And right now, he is stroking the Essential Guide to Assassin's Creed, that book. He loves that book.
Oh, it's literally my guardian. But it does, and this will actually touched upon in Assassin's Creed 1 emails as well, by Warren Vidic. And in Project Rainbow, a joint venture between the Brotherhood and the Templar Order to alter the past in order to prevent the horrific events of World War II fails. The US Eldridge, the ship where the experiment took place, temporarily manifested in a future state for about 18 minutes, and the Apple of Eden was severely damaged in the process. The risks involved any further attempts to manipulate time were damaged too high, and the project was classified as a failure. And then that would evolve into the Animus.
I have questions.
You can ask questions.
The Brotherhood and the Templars worked together.
Yes.
Have they? I mean, you know, they at this point, 1943, they've been at war, shall we say, for 2,000 years. And I'm sure there are other occasions where their interests have aligned. But is this the first time that it's documented that they work together? Or is this one of many occasions where they've realised they have to work together?
I'm not 100% sure, I'm going to admit, because this is in one of the comic transmedias that I haven't yet to follow. But judging by how it's a joint venture to prevent Hitler's actions in World War II, it would seem that Hitler isn't aligned to either order. He's like a loose cannon. So it in my ideas, it's like Black going rogue. So the Templars and the Assassins try and take down Black in Unity. It's that sort of idea. So, but it was failed, and in the Assassin's Creed 1 emails, Warren Vidic did cancel it because it was just too damaging. And now, I know a fellow podcaster has touched, I believe, on the Philadelphia Project before and done the lore, but I want to do something interesting, and let's not look at a what if. Like, what if time travel happened? What if it fixed? Let's go back to Assassin's Creed 1, and let's imagine that we never played as Desmond Miles in the Animus, but Desmond Miles actually did time travel. And that's what I'm hoping to have a cool discussion, that imagine all these games never used an Animus, but were actually time travel. So it's not like a what if, it's just rebuilding the games back up and see could they work from a point of view. And as I'm going to referred to Reddit, which I barely use, Nolan North was asked about Desmond Miles, and he did say that Ubisoft's original plan was he was supposed to be 6 games that would continue the Bleed and Effect story arc, and it would culminate in him being an ultimate assassin, being able to time travel. But that's all he said.
Okay, interesting. I am a little bit wondering. So the original concept was for the ultimate assassin to develop the ability to time travel.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm not too sure
Okay.
how that could work.
It,
So,
it feels like saner heads prevailed at some point.
yes, I do prefer the idea, but imagine if technically that Desmond Miles was kidnapped and he was sent back in time to be Altair. That would have messed things up historically. The games would never have been historically science fiction because it would be impossible to create historical science fiction based on time travel because every action a time traveler does causes the butterfly effect.
Do you know what I'm immediately thinking of when you say, imagine if, let's pretend instead of Warren Vidic, Vidic? Is it Vidic or Vidic?
I think it's Vidic,
Vidic.
but
We'll
I'm
go with Vidic.
dyslexic.
Ah. Um, let's pretend that instead of the Animus project, he'd been working on a time travel project, so he's created this time travel machine, and yet Desmond steps into the machine. Do you know what I'm immediately reminded of?
What?
Do you remember you may be too young, but do you remember the television series Quantum Leap?
I've heard of it.
Right. Okay. Oh man. Right. So that was the lead character whose name I've actually forgotten, but he's played by Scott. Is it Bakula? I'm not sure. Again, another name I don't know how to pronounce. This is not a good night. He time travelled from different locations. I don't remember how many episodes they made. I used to love this program, but he would time travel from location to location through this machine, but he didn't know where he was going to end up. But he kind of he replaced the did he inhabit the body of the person, or did the person he replaced get transported out? I can't remember, but it kind of feels like that concept to me. So Altair is kind of removed from his world, and Desmond is dropped into his body, or into his shoes, shall we say? But my immediate thought is he wouldn't speak the local language for a start.
No.
So what would he do? I mean, he would have no abilities. Whereas at least at the start of AC1, Altair, for his mistakes, was a fully trained assassin, very skilled in combat and parkour and stealth and everything. So Desmond would be, sorry, Desmond, he'd be useless as an assassin in that first mission. Can you imagine not being able to climb, not being able to do anything?
I think the biggest useless part is if he's wandering around blind, not sure what he's supposed to be doing, and he mentions knowledge of the 21st century, because that time period things were more recorded in history, we do have more data. Some of that could have actually been slipped into recordings. And you imagine some guy finding a pamphlet from that time period of a guy in assassin's robes talking about mobile phones. Where do I get phone reception? It kind of makes the games a bit more overcomplicated if they stuck with time travel.
It'd be very difficult to have you to create a story that even made sense would be, like I say, just the language. You've got this guy from America who suddenly dropped into the middle of Masyaf's in Syria, isn't it? So
Yeah.
dropped into the middle of Syria in the 12th century. Um, he's he's probably going to be locked up
For a
because
lunatic.
because he's not going to be able to communicate with them. He's going to be dressed very strangely. I mean, these assassins in their robes look a bit strange already, but you've got this guy in his hoodie and jeans who turns, although with the hood, maybe he could just put the hood up on the hoodie and, hey guys, I'm part of the crew now, I'll just put my hood up. But yeah, it would, I mean, it would remove. There are enough people out there that say, yeah, the game shouldn't have the modern day. That's the worst part of the games, which just makes me cross. But anyway, it would remove that entire aspect of the game. Although he might travel back, I suppose he could kind of travel back at different points and either report back what he's learned. That could be interesting. But again, you've got to overcome the geography, the language, the culture barrier. But if you could write a story, or just through kind of, let's say, quote unquote gameplay, if you could gloss over all of those aspects and just have him drop into Altair's shoes, do the missions, learn about the past, bring that knowledge back at periods during the story, that might work. So every time Desmond comes out of the Animus, he's actually being beamed forward in time, should we say, to report back. That could potentially work. What have you learned on this trip back? And he could then maybe take more knowledge back with him. But that would always be tricky, like you say, because the beauty of Assassin's Creed is you're learning, or you're exploring the secret history, the untold history, but you're not changing history. So if there's a character that's featured in these games, a historical character, they will die when they actually die in recorded history. So we're not changing written history. We're just exploring between the pages of history, between the lines of history. But if you do a time travel game, you've got you have the risk that Desmond could trip up and kill the wrong person, or kill himself and die in the past. Which would be good for archaeologists to uncover this body clothed in 21st century clothes 1,000 years later and try to work out that puzzle. But yeah, how do you deal with the breaks in the timeline? And then you head into proper sci-fi of multiverses and all the rest of it. And that's at that point my brain melts and I'm not really sure what to say.
I think the biggest complication in my eyes is actually making gameplay work. Because the best thing about Assassin's Creed is we're using very advanced puppeteer mechanics of the simulation, where basically a puppet master controlling the character. But you couldn't do that with time travel. You'll have to do your own routes, and that is already destroying written history, because you don't know how to do this, you don't know the local lingo, you don't know your way around the buildings, you don't know who anyone is. There you go, you've already created a paradox. Because it you see the complications I see with time travel. You're creating this scenario where history is written to where the 20th century, but if Desmond goes back and messes things up, then it could be no reason for Desmond to go back. Therefore,
True.
the universe just implodes.
The universe explodes and we're all dead. Yes. Which could be a bit of a short ending to the franchise.
Assassin's Creed 1, 20 minutes in, kaboom, in a sense. Good
Do
night.
you know what? I've just had a bit of an epiphany. This might be really, really obvious. Let me explain what was just popped into my head. So, with the way the games are structured, and we see it with Desmond and we see it with Layla, who's our most recent modern day protagonist. The middle games don't really have a modern day protagonist exactly. But both of them spend a lot of time in the Animus exploring different memories, and they experience the bleeding effect, and that influences them when they come out of the Animus. It's a well-established part of the franchise and the lore and so on, that anyone who spends time in the Animus will experience the bleeding effect to a greater or lesser extent. But what I've just realised is, and what's a really neat little thing, this might be really obvious, so you can tell me if this is really obvious. What I like about the bleeding effect, and about how the modern day protagonist experiences and then sort of grows their abilities, that's a reflection of us, the player. We are getting better at the game. We are understanding the parkour and the mechanics of the bleeding effect. Excuse me. So as Desmond gets better at parkour, and he's sort of climbing up the skyscraper, or he's climbing the beams across the MMA fight, he's getting the benefits of the bleeding effect. We as the player, our skills are growing, and I quite like how the bleeding effect is kind of a reflection of us as the actual player, with our hands on the controller or on the keyboard, getting better. And you wouldn't have that if it was just time travel who plopped Desmond in there. And sure, he could have a skill tree or abilities or whatever that he unlocks, and that's fine. But the bleeding effect is quite a nice little storytelling thing that you just wouldn't have without the Animus doing that.
I think there's a lot that wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the Animus, and I think the biggest one has to be the glyphs from Assassin's Creed 2 and Valhalla. they're pivotal story points. Looking after the glyphs from Subject 16 and learning about Cain being the first Templar action by killing Abel with a piece of Eden.
So at this point, I must confess to a huge gap in my knowledge, because I never did. I'm really sorry, everyone. I never did all the glyphs in AC2.
They're so good. You see a lot of history. You see Adam and Eve with a piece of
Oh, hang
Eden.
on. Is it the glyphs that unlock the hidden truth video? Or
I
is that
believe so,
something else?
yes.
Oh, no, I have done
No.
those. I did those. I've unlocked the hidden. I remember unlocking the hidden truth video, because you get those puzzles on the screen, don't you, where you've got to find the apple sort of
Yeah.
hidden on Queen Elizabeth or hidden on the Apollo moon landing and whatever. I remember doing those. But is that the glyphs, or am I getting confused now between different parts of of the early games?
I think they're called glyphs. I think Valhalla was the anomalies.
Animus anomalies in Valhalla, yep, which unlocked that video of the Norse Isu, should we call them? Yep.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Assassin's Creed 2 was a glyphs because you get them in Florence and all over.
Mm,
I know there was the Nostradamus signals in Unity, which
yeah.
again, you wouldn't get in time travel because, well, how is your protagonist then going to know what they're looking for?
So okay, so I'll tell you what, let's
Oh, sorry.
sidestep the fact that maybe I've missed major parts of the games, the early games anyway. Um, what's the explanation for the glyphs in AC2? They're not really there. They're sort of hidden code or hidden memories in the Animus that Desmond finds, even though he's kind of reliving Ezio's memories. Is that how you understand it?
Um, if I remember correctly, it's explained in Revelations when you get trapped in the Animus Island and you meet Clay, Subject 16.
Okay, it is again confession time. So I have played Revelations. I have completed the main kind of Ezio Altair story. I never did any of the Animus Island stuff.
They're so good. But I believe the whole idea is Clay Cormac is trapped in the Grey or the Animus. It's why when Desmond goes into coma and is forced and he sees Clay. And I
Yeah, I
believe
remember that. Yeah.
Clay was hacking the Animus. So at the time, it's like how Loki hacked the Animus in Valhalla.
Oh,
So
interesting.
you were seeing them in that time, whereas Valhalla did it better by actually pulling Layla into the data stream to play them. In Assassin's Creed 2, it was Ezio experienced them, but it was you through the simulation. It was one of those points where, and I'm going to refer to Assassin's Creed, I've got the book, Last Descendants, because it's explained when you have set memories, you have a free time where your character can roam the simulation.
Yeah,
That's how they worded it. So I believe it's between blocked memories, our protagonist has free time through the simulation, so he can't do things his character wouldn't do, but you have free roam of the simulation as Ezio, so you would
makes
find
sense.
them and you would do them, but that's you as the protagonist doing it, not Ezio. That's just
Yeah,
Ezio's
Ezio
free
didn't
time.
really walk up to that wall and scan it with his eagle vision and see a glyph,
No.
but he's actually not really there anyway, because the Animus has built the simulation of Venice or Florence, and it's created this simulation of Ezio's body that you are controlling. So, yeah, yeah. So those, if you're doing time travel, no glyphs, no Animus anomalies, you lose a lot of storytelling flexibility.
Yeah.
Let's call it that.
And you lose a key part of the game's identity. The Animus is the biggest pivotal point in the series. If they started with time travel, you couldn't make a time machine unique because every form of time travel has already been done. TARDIS from Doctor Who. I believe Star Trek is a form
Yes,
of time
indeed.
travel.
Yeah, yeah.
Vortex Manipulator again in Doctor Who. They're all just the same. The Animus is the only unique thing I've ever heard of that can allow a person to relive memories via time travel in a simulation. So pulling that out, you would literally make the game a standard time travel game. There's no unique or finesse to it. It's just a basic time travel game where it explains history. And as I don't know if you've seen it in the Discovery Tour for Valhalla, they admit in one of the locations they've had to use gameplay mechanics to try and make the world a bit better for the player, if that makes sense. So,
Go on. So talk me through what you mean there.
well, what I mean is, in the simulation, and I'm trying to remember where I've heard this before, haystacks and routes are added for the player to do
Ah,
leaps of faith.
gotcha.
And in Valhalla, they explain in the very first behind the scenes that the town in Norway was created using artistic renderings, but their own little gameplay flair to give players more routes to move
Yeah.
around.
So an example of this from the early games is like where you see the eagles circling over the synchronization points. They weren't really there. The Animus has
Oh,
added those to help the Animus user find them. And the pigeons, is that right? The pigeons that gather on top of the leap of faith points, is that right?
yeah. Um, I feel so stupid now. 14
Why?
years, I actually thought they were like legit eagles in the past that would fly around these points and pinch you.
But now I'm wondering if I've got it wrong because you're the pro. You know, you get involved in a lot of intense law discussions with different people, and you forget, and all the thoughts get like mushed up in my brain. Maybe I'm wrong about that. That's one to check afterwards.
I would
Don't
say
forget to give us a like on Twitter if we got this part of the conversation completely wrong.
I would say your part makes more sense because you need in any simulation a pivotal marker point to get players to do the stuff. And I believe the leap of faith at the beginning, the viewpoints, were to synchronize the memories, not just a gameplay mechanic to. I believe they help synchronize the memories because they're called sync points. So
Interesting. Yeah.
giving people a fake eagle to know where a sync point is to sync a memory would make more sense than 20 eagles legitly flying around a big church. Why would they fly around in circles all day?
You know, straight as soon as we hit stop on the recording, we are both going to go to the AC Wiki and try and work out: are these eagles really there, or did the Animus put them in to help the Animus user?
Oh, definitely. I want to know now, like, is that eagle cry when you do leap of faith a legit eagle cry, or is it just like a gameplay mechanic to say you've done a leap of faith, have a eagle cry?
I mean, I'm going to go all in now. I'm assuming the Animus creates that because that's the Animus's way of saying, I have saved your checkpoint of your progress. I
You
don't know.
you need it with some of them leap of faith when you fall off and you actually miss the hairstyle.
Absolutely. Have you seen the ones where this is in AC1 where Altair will do a leap of faith, but he won't fall into the hay. He will hit it like it's a solid object and basically die instantly.
No, I had one when I first played on 360, and I was off tangent, and it was the first time I ever had this glitch in my life in any game. He did the first leap of faith in the kingdom. He hit the hairbell, and he did like this little backward thing to twist in it, but he just kept falling through the map.
Haha, brilliant.
So you just saw him just like
Brilliant.
somersaulting through the map forever, and it just made me laugh. Like, there he goes.
I've had a few like that. Not very often, but isn't it funny how that even after many, obviously these games build on each other. They take the code from the previous game and add to it and change it, and so that there's a long history here. But isn't it funny how those falling through the map things can still happen? I had it in Valhalla with Eivor, once or twice. So it is funny how these little glitches. They don't bother me. It's part of the fun. But yeah, that's a good one. So come on, let's get back on track. So time travel. Um, if they had gone down the time travel route, I'm fairly comfortable to say it would have been obviously a different kind of game, but probably less interesting, as you say, less distinctive.
Um, I think, in my opinion, the biggest thing that would ruin it is the only reason I play now. I will admit the only reason I've been playing Assassin's Creed is not just for the history, is the Isu. Literally, you Isu only talk to Ezio through the simulation. They're
Good
simulating
point.
all. What are you saying that we're going to see Isu through time travel, or would they have just took the Isu out completely, which they can't do because without Isu, you'll never have an Assassin's Creed game. I will stand by that statement. But
Well, I mean, yeah, because let's be honest, whether they're a central, they're usually a central focus, but your piece of Eden is usually the plot device, isn't it, that drives the whole each game story. So yeah, without that, you've
plus,
got to come up with a different plot device.
well, and technically, the whole lore is built on we humans are made from Isus. You take the Isu out, no one makes the humans.
When you think about it, actually, like the overlapping circles of the lore, the Isu, humans are slaves, these devices they built to control the slaves, one group wanting peace through order, one group wanting peace through free will. This device that the guys that are in charge of the order has created to explore memories. They've overlapped all these areas, and it really is fantastic for storytelling and creating so many layers of interest and good gameplay.
But I don't really think they could keep that if they took it out. If they took the whole simulation out, they couldn't keep that overlying interest because how would you make the Isu interesting? How could you make the Isu worth paying attention to if there's no simulation? Because the only real way you can meet an Isu in real life is through a sage. And I'd think if you relied too much on the sages, that mechanic would get boring. Finding the sages that you don't know are sages is the most invigorating thing ever. Someone after Valhalla told me there's 9 Aesir sages in the game that we
Yeah,
own.
yeah.
Like, that blew my mind. We don't know them because they're not main characters, but could you still get that impact if this was time travel? If you were Layla being Eivor, would those Aesir sages have such an impact? Because you would have had to use sages from Assassin's Creed 1 to Valhalla to tie in the Isu to all the games. By now, you'd just be like, oh, look, another sage. Here we
I
go
mean,
again.
just on that point of the sages, obviously they've used the sage bit of the lore very heavily for Valhalla. It was used in Unity. It was used in Black Flag. I feel like it probably shouldn't be used for a few games or for a few stories now. They should explore other things. That's just a side point. But if you've got a franchise or a story built on time travel, skip all the rubbish. Just send the modern day person 75,000 years ago back to when the Isu were still alive with their cities, and just walk around them and explore.
That's what I want. I do want that one day because
You would like to do that. You'd like to go not just to the simulations like we saw in Fate of Atlantis, but you would actually like to go to the real Isu cities.
yes, I don't know why. I just want to go to them just because. Not to be rude, we've had 14 years. I'm sick of being drip fed Isu knowledge. I want some good, heavy Isu knowledge by now. I want
Understood.
to see a city. I want to see what Loki's been up to in his past life. I want to see what Naughty Boy's been doing. Naughty.
We may see. I mean, isn't it fairly certain that the next DLC for Valhalla is gonna? Well, we don't know exactly, but either it will feature him or it will explore his story, or I mean, we don't know if it's modern day exploration or well, based on what we've been shown, it's probably going to be more mythological slash historical exploration. Um, that's a good point. So one of the nice dodges that the writers can do with the Animus is so for when Cassandra explores Atlantis and when Eivor explores Asgard and the other realm that I can't remember, Jotunheim.
Jotunheim.
I really don't know anything about Norse mythology. Those realms, as we see in the game, yes, they are spectacular and there is artistic license, but it can be explained because that's how Cassandra understood what she was seeing with her Greek mythology sort of culture, and Eivor saw what she saw because she had that layer of her own culture's mythology, sort of filtering and adjusting the real Isu. Um, if you take that layer of sort of cultural uniqueness out by not using Animus, using time travel, it's probably less varied and less interesting. it'll still be spectacular to go back to these Isu cities with towering buildings and futuristic technology. But you'd probably lose a bit of the artistic and creativity side of things.
I think the biggest artistic creativity loss you will get is, put it frankly, history's boring. Like, and that sounds harsh, but
That is harsh. History is fascinating. I need
but
you to defend that point.
what I mean is, like, history itself, the knowledge of what happened in the past is always fascinating. But when you look at the world and the history and how it may not be as fanciful as movies, books, and TVs make out, if you were to go into history and say, I'm going to use Messiah from Assassin's Creed 1 because we remember it a lot more,
Yeah,
you got to imagine that that would not be how the game represents the history would not be identical to how it would be represented in real history. There wouldn't be hay bales strewn around. There wouldn't be like understanding what's going on. It wouldn't be peaceful. There would be a lot more human nature to it. Like more arguing on the streets.
true.
Maybe a bit more crime because people want to steal an apple or two. That's what I'm trying to get. Like, using the simulation, you can make history engaging and gravitating, like we see with Discovery Tour and the games. But you plonk people in legit history, and I'm going to quote Amit from Origins, you wouldn't get stuff like pants. They didn't wear pants in their time, so we just wear like short stuff.
That is a good point, and I can tell you that I have learned recently that in the period of the French Revolution, they also, men and women, did not wear underwear. So there's some very big historical things going on there that would be very different.
Like, I do find history is one of the biggest passions I have. Jaw dropping some of the stuff I learn, but the world itself, to live in it, may not be as interesting as games, books, and films can captivate. And if you have a time travel, you have to follow that strict what legit happened. You can't have artistic license or game license and call a game a historical time travel because, again, it's not historically accurate. Whereas the Animus can defend stuff, have a flaming unicorn. Why? It's an
Absolutely.
Animus hack.
Animus hacks. I love
That's
Animus
why.
hacks.
It's
What I
legit.
also like about Animus hacks, just to say though, is that they're optional.
Yeah.
So, people always, the meme that everyone says is, Ubisoft removed the crossbow from AC1 for historical accuracy. And then there'll be a picture of Cassandra, like on fire, riding a unicorn, and then in 2018 they gave us Odyssey, which is this. And I always think, look, mate, it's an Animus hack, but more importantly, it's optional. If you want to play it really realistically, let's just take Odyssey for an example. Just have the generic horse, equip the most boring armor. You don't need to. You can equip your character with no abilities, and you can play sort of a quote unquote realism experience of your ancient Greek simulator. But if you do want to go all in on the Animus hacks, do it. Have fun. It's your game. And that's what, you've got the same in Origins, where you've got the Animus control panel, where
Yeah.
you can tweak the simulation. And it very clearly says, adjust your simulation, and you can play as different characters, and you can change the guards' AI values and all the rest of it. It's brilliant. But yeah, go, just as long as you understand that you've got an option as the player to hack the Animus and go crazy, or not, and just play it, realistically, I think it's fine.
I think that's what Darwin McDevitt said once, that the NPCs of the world never react to the character. So if you're standing next to an NPC with a flaming lion, the NPC
Yes,
won't be
yes.
like, oh, why is she riding a flaming lion? So, but if you try to say, look, this is a time travel game, we're giving you a flaming lion, you'll have to have that dialogue where an NPC is like, why you want a flaming lion? Well, that
Yeah,
makes no sense
yeah,
because that can't
yeah.
happen. So you have that freedom in any Assassin's Creed game to give people crazy anything and say it's a hack because the NPCs will never react. And that's the whole. They may react that you've bumped into them, but that's not because you're on a flaming lion or a unicorn that's on fire. That's just you've been bumped by a horse. So it's kind of like you're losing a great part of the identity of the series is simulations can be tweaked, they can be adapted, and you can have a lot of fun with simulations. But you take that out, and what's going to happen? Not really. It'd be
Yeah, you're
boring.
right. You're right. It'd be a very straight game, wouldn't it? A very straightforward game is what I meant to say. Um, Let me ask you a different question then. So, conversation I remember a long time ago, not that long ago, on Reddit. I got into a discussion with someone. I forget if it was which of the Assassin's Creed subreddits it was on, but this person was convinced the Animus was not a simulation, um, which I'm pretty sure it is. But anyway, that's not the point of my question. So my question is: have you ever had a debate with someone who was convinced that the game was time travel, and you've had to try and talk them through? I mean, it's not simple, is it, the lore of this franchise? But have you ever had to try and talk someone through why it isn't time travel?
My brother.
Okay,
I I showed my brother me playing Assassin's Creed once, and he said that's a generic time travel game. I was like, no, because you don't
I
time travel.
see. Yeah,
But he did have a valid point that there isn't enough evidence in the games without modern day to prove that the game is time travel. And it's a very valid point that I'm going to use Unity again because I like Unity and I like Syndicate. They took away the modern day, and a lot of you player agents who was doing your own thing. And I'm going to use actually Unity, Syndicate, not Unity,
I think we can
because
say I know I'm a Unity fanboy. Absolutely, Unity's modern day is the weakest of the whole
so
franchise.
Syndicates.
Syndicate at least lets us have a few cutscenes with Bex and Sean and Berg and what's the other one called? Is it Violet Victoria da Costa?
I can't
Oh my
remember
god, I
now.
can't remember. Anyway, there are at least a few cutscenes with our Templars and our Abstergo employees and our assassins, but Unity is definitely a weak point. Yeah,
Well, I'm going to use Syndicate because, not to be rude, it's the multiplayer that I'm trying hard to explain as a logical one. But
understood.
if we looked at Syndicate and ignored the Rift simulation, which is the best thing in Syndicate, if you look at that game whole world, you play that without the simulation, without the modern day, you could argue that that's you time traveled as Jacob or Evie. You could argue because there's not a lot of out there. I know there's the um, Gauntlet, the rope launcher, but that's down to steampunk. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. But
And the rope launcher is cool.
it is cool. I think it's one of the best ways to get around in Syndicate. I just really hate that you can't air assassinate off it. That would have been cool.
you can you can you can dive off of it though into
Oh,
haystacks. You
I
can
did not know
you can
that.
air assassinate from the rope,
Wow,
definitely,
I
because
bet
there's
it
a
is.
mission. And you know what? If we had Louise on the show right now, like we had her on 2 weeks ago for Valhalla, for Halloween, she would be shouting at us. There is a mission where you're at the monument to the Great Fire of London, and you have. I'm sure it's that one. Maybe not. Maybe that's the one where you have to do. You have to do the jump. I'm sure there's a mission where you have to do air assassinations to get 100% sync. Anyway, if anyone's listening right now and you're shouting at your headphones, we're sorry, but I haven't played Syndicate for a long time, and I need to refresh my memory. But I'm pretty sure you can air assassinate. Yeah, of course, you must be able to. You must be able to.
I can't remember, but
To Louise, I'm really sorry.
yes, I
You
am
should know
sorry as
better.
well. But the point still stands that Syndicate does offer a really good Victorian London during the Industrial Age. And if you take out, the gameplay of 100 Sync and the memories, you could argue that is a time travel game in that scenario. But as you said with Unity, the modern day the weakest, it lets the series down. Not having that not having that reassurance that it's a simulation lets the series down, in my opinion, because time travel is so generic and so overdone in sci-fi. You need something to refresh it. The idea that this is a simulation, it can be hacked, it can be edited, it can be distorted, it can have an inception moment of a simulation. It gives this series the most uniquest identity that separates it. No other game out there has a simulation where you visit memories that I believe. I have played a lot of games, but I don't remember one like this. But you make it time travel, and it's just a generic sci-fi game like all the others out there. So I think
Yeah, yeah,
time travel would make the series the weakest it is.
yeah. Well, I mean, you could even just delete the concept of time travel and just plonk the player into whatever location you like. Oh, congratulations, you are Edward Kenway. Yeah, but why am I Edward Kenway? Why does it matter that he needs to find these locations or talk to these people and gather information? I suppose it would be just another generic action adventure game.
That would be the bit, and I think as well, I think you mentioned Edward, and I was supposed to bring him up. Um, Edward wouldn't have all of his teeth, and
He does have a good set of teeth for someone living in the 17th, 18th century.
scurvy was quite high for people living on boats
If you
because
were on
of.
ship for months on end, you were going to have scurvy, you're right, and you'd be very ill, very ill.
So really, if we can talk about historical accuracy, Edward should not be in fit enough health to be running around Havana and jumping leaps of faith because
True,
he's on
true.
that ship for months on end.
Yeah. When did the
Years.
Royal Navy start issuing lemon and lime juice for scurvy? It was in the 18th century. I'm sorry, we're getting way off topic, but I do have a bit of a passing interest in this aspect of history because there's a reason why British people are sometimes referred to as limeys, and it comes from the Royal Navy issuing out their sailors with a little daily dose of lemon and lime juice for the vitamin C. It would have been in the 18th century, but was it the early 18th century during Edward's time, or was it later? I feel it was a bit later. Anyway, do you know what? It doesn't matter. We're talking about Assassin's Creed and time travel, not to the dietary habits of Royal Navy sailors.
I will admit enough tangent. I wouldn't mind sitting around a bit of lime and lemon juice. I love lime and lemons.
Well, I mean, you put it in a gin and tonic, and now we're really talking.
I was more thinking of key lime pie and lemon meringue pie.
See, you've gone for a slightly more, healthy option. I'll just wash it down with a gin and tonic.
But that's the other aspect of history is boring. It's full of diseases and stuff like that man didn't understand. You really think Desmond Miles, plonked in the shoes of Edward Kenway, would have been able to survive on a boat for years? Like, and as well, we're talking. No, he wasn't in actual Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but let's say he was. That would be 1, 2, Brotherhood, Revelations, 3, Black Flag. How many years apart is all this? He'll be an old man by the time he becomes Edward. That's imagine.
That's a good point, because that's the other thing about the Animus is, and I know that the dates are very clearly worked out in the wiki, people can look it up, but the events from Assassin's Creed 1, in the modern day I'm talking, to the end of Assassin's Creed 3, that takes place over about 3 or 4 months, doesn't it, in 2012? But it's a very consistent point of the series that the Animus user in a few days can sort of synchronize or can experience the memories of many years of a character's life. If you're time traveling, you can't have that kind of accelerated time. You've got to live Ezio's 50, 60-year life in real time because you have time traveled, which again, very different kind of storytelling.
And it would make the storytelling wouldn't have lasted for 12 games if you've got to last Ezio's life.
No,
By the time you
that'd be a very long game, a 55, 60-year long game.
Imagine that. Assassin's Creed 96.
Yeah.
Ezio's old age. Yay! We're getting
Ezio goes to the market. Ezio bakes some bread.
Yes. It'll literally be Assassin's Creed 2 with 160 DLC.
Oh my god! I mean,
DLC
don't give Ubisoft any ideas.
But that sort of stuff would be horrible with time travel. I would get bored of the series if I had to age. I would just be like, oh, I'm going to sleep now. I've had enough.
I think you've convinced me that time travel is not a great option as a kind of storytelling framework. But are there any advantages that you can think of as to why you might want to set a game up as time travel?
If we're talking Assassin's Creed universe, I have tons. A Sigma team to steal Piece of Eden's quicker. Perfect.
Oh, so just if you need to find a piece of Eden, don't waste time with this Animus thing. Just go back in time to where you know it is and grab it.
Yeah.
Fair
half the
enough.
half the
Yeah.
time they're
Roll
abandoned
credits. That's a
anyways.
10-minute game.
And technically, half of them are abandoned anyway. So the pro is that time travel. Time won't get rewritten because no one knows it's there. You can't rewrite history if no one knows it's there. So it's not damaging. I think it would be kind of fun to create a multiverse. I just think that would be kind of hilarious, a multiverse where one thing happens, but you actually go back in time and change it. That'd be hilarious. I prefer it as a simulation because then you can just delete the ones that are not working.
Yeah, yeah, that would be interesting.
But actually, now I'm stumped. Research purposes, maybe? Like Sean Hastings, to get background knowledge for assassins instead of sitting on Google, Wikipedia. Pop back to 18th century, live it for a couple of days, pop back, give the assassins the information they need, plonk them in the Animus, and you've got a perfect replicated Animus device. I think that's about it. I think I'm stumped there. Multiplayer. We can't have multiplayer in time travel. I really don't think your friend wants to be dragged along.
We can't have multiplayer. Why not? Why can't
Well,
you just say you and your buddies are time traveling together?
because then it kind of makes no sense. Like, Unity, you can play the game entirely solo,
Yep.
or you can do side activities that are co-op.
Yep.
So what you're trying to say is, I've time traveled the French Revolution.
Yep.
I'm running about it solo, but I want to go hang out with my friends from the 20th century. So I'm going to call them up. They're going to time travel back to this mission, and then they go back home.
Yeah, 18th century Skype call, not a problem. Call your mates, get in the time machine. We're going to Paris.
Exactly. Hi, yeah, I'm just outside the guillotine. They're about to
Yeah, we've got to
kill
steal
another
that
revolutionist.
artwork from the Palais de Luxembourg. Not a problem. We'll do it as a team.
I'll be warned, if you get shot in the leg, I'm going to have to leave you here because I don't...
Now that would be interesting. That's a really good... Right, so there, you've just hit on something accidentally. You don't die in Assassin's Creed. You desynchronize. If it's time travel, you die and you're dead.
So basically what we're doing is we're making a Assassin's Creed Dark Souls. You die, and everything just gets wiped.
Yeah, yeah. That
Oof.
would be... that would make the game much harder than my minuscule gaming abilities anyway.
As a guy who's played Dark Souls 1, 2, and Bloodborne, if I had to fight Al Malouim, then die, then lose all my abilities, all my gear, to go back to the last, let's say they have like a loop sync for the time travel, so the subject doesn't die. So maybe the loop sync updates every 2 time travel days, for example, and I have to loop back 2 days to get all that gear again, to go back to find Almoim, to fight him again, to die. I think my disc would have been frisbeed out the bedroom window.
Yes, I did that fight once. It was bloody hard. I would not want to do it again and lose everything I'd gained.
No. So the time travel would just be like rage-inducing, especially for difficult fights. I think I would have gone grey. I'm like, no, I'm done. Quit the franchise. I'm off. Like, it's bad enough that the game's caused me to rage quit because I've told the characters to jump A, and they've jumped B instead. It's like, no, I want to go up, not off. Don't wall vault backwards because you're going to fall into a river and you can't swim.
I can only say one phrase: control input discipline. Now I can say that phrase. Do I practice it? Of course not. When I panic, I mash the keys like everyone else, and I leap all over the place.
I do that. I'm like that. Oh, it's not working. Why is it?
Jump, fucking jump.
To be honest, it's off tangent. I dropped my 360 in a bag of sherbet controller, and I didn't realise what I was doing. But I picked up the controller, dusted the sherbet off, and loads of crystals got stuck in the A button. So I was like,
no.
oh, like, why can't Altair jump? I'm in high profile. I had to get like a chisel to get it hot. So yeah.
Okay. Don't put your controllers in sherbet, kids. It's not a good move.
But imagine that with time travel. You're screwed then. Imagine that.
You're dead.
My controller isn't working. I'm playing this game, and now my time travel's gone back 2 days. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done. I have just been run over by a horse. I'm done. Plus, think about all the ways you die in Assassin's Creed. I like combat, my own stupid mistakes, fall of buildings, death by time travel, diseases, random crime, horse tramplings, a building breaks because actually you can't jump on those tarpaulin things on markets. I don't think a human can fit through them. Tripping on your own sword, that's bound to happen. Or drop an arrow in your foot and it gets infected.
Good point. Well, you eat a bad bit of food whilst you've time travelled, and you get dysentery and die. You could die in a really mundane way. Yeah, you're
You
right.
could just you could go to bed, and some guy could think, "Hey, this guy's got some snazzy pants I've never seen before," and you're not waking up in the morning because your 21st century jeans are looking rocking on some 18th century dude.
Absolutely. Yeah, and he's killed you so he can nick your jeans. Yeah, that'd be quite a funny end to the story, though, wouldn't it? You have died. End of game.
You've died and you've lost your jeans.
Yeah.
Oh no! But I know this is going off topic. There's no kind of massive tangent, but it just shows that when you don't look at what if and look at how it could work, and you look at the actual implications of this franchise's time travel, this franchise wouldn't have held up if it focused too heavy on history and time travel. It holds up because there's Isu, there's myths that could be altered, have origins in Isu, but humans have changed them. There's wacky stuff you can do when you just restart the simulation. You can hack it and put a flaming lion in it. And that is not me like making a swear word to exaggerate lion. I'm literally saying 12-foot manticore lion
Yes, yes.
with blue flames and a little bit of harness as well. That's legit what you can do with the simulation. But I wonder if you could drag a flaming lion back into the past.
Well, any lion can be a flaming lion once for several minutes. Yeah. It's not very good for the lion, though.
No, and if you play Origins, I would hate to play that game in time travel because those hippos are very aggressive.
Hippos are vicious.
I hate hippo. I really hate the achievement. Bring a lion to date a hippo.
Oh, that's hilarious, isn't it? Yes, I did get that achievement. There's one I didn't get in Origins. I was looking the other day. Again, we are way off topic. Whatever. I thought I'd 100% in Origins, but in UB Connect, it's showing me it's 99%. But I've got all the achievements, so I'm missing something. I don't know what it is.
Oh, I wouldn't
Oh,
know. I planned a bit. Worst decision of my life. Don't platinum Origins.
really?
I had to walk around a desert for 14 hours, real time.
Oh, to get the raining bugs.
Mm-hmm.
I so there's quite a few different animations, isn't there, that you can experience in the desert. And like you, the one that I needed was that it took me forever to happen.
My
Still
mate got it
pretty
day one.
quite an interesting part of the game to see those hallucinations, and some of them are quite moving. You get shadows or echoes of Hiemu, don't you? I think is one of the things by XE. So there's some good stuff in there. But yes, I didn't really. I'd like the RNG to be slightly tweaked to show me what I need for the achievement a little bit quicker because it was a long time in the desert.
Before I ask you one last question, I will admit there was one hallucination, and while I was on horseback, and I paused the game, and I went and got a TV screen wipe because I thought there was like a bug on the screen or something. So I was like wiping the screen, and it wouldn't go off, and I continued playing, and it disappeared. I was like, that was a weird glitch. So I was about to file a bug report. Like, I've had this weird bug. And then I saw a bush on fire, so I ran towards it, thinking it was some loot, and it disappeared. Again, getting ready to file my bug
Oh
report.
damn! Yeah,
And then
gotcha.
someone's like, then I saw on Facebook, like, has anyone seen the mirages before? And I was like, oh, I was about to report a bug there.
I wonder how many people did do what you did and actually clicked, file bug. I'm seeing weird stuff when I'm exploring the desert.
Or
You do
hearing
wonder, don't you?
voices. I think you could hear voices at one part, and
Mm,
I thought my headset was breaking. I was like, what's
mm.
going on here? So, the last question I can think of, unless you can think of one, is there any game you would be interested in time traveling to?
from this franchise,
Yes.
where would I like to time travel? As me, just to walk around and experience the real world?
Yes. Unity's off the tables.
You know, although my mind went there first, I don't really want to be in revolutionary Paris. There's a lot of that was a very head choppy time, and
True.
I wouldn't want to be on the block. So I wasn't going to say that, even though you might have thought that. All right. The problem with history is, right now, I know we have problems in 2021, and there's issues, society and environmental and political, but this is pretty much the best time to be alive because most of history is pretty grim. I'm going to be
Yes.
honest with you. So I suppose, all right, let's think it through. Let's think it through. Victorian London, not really. French Revolution, definitely not. I don't want to be on a ship in the golden age of piracy. No thanks. I don't want scurvy. I don't want to die in a broadside battle with a Royal Navy warship or whatever. I think I'm tempted towards the ancient world.
Huh.
I'm afraid Anglo-Saxon England does not interest me at all. That's not true. It does interest me, but it would be a coin toss between exploring Ptolemaic Egypt and exploring, the Greek Golden Age. I'd have to flip a coin for that one. Do you want to flip it for me? You pick one. Where am I going? Am I going to Egypt or am I going to Greece?
Greece.
All right, good call. I can take that. So there you go. I'll go and hang out with Socrates and we'll talk philosophy.
That would be nice. That would be a
Yeah.
dream come true.
Absolutely. I love that guy. Every scene with him in that game is just fantastic. Made me laugh. Brilliant.
I think for me, Assassin's Creed 3's Frontier.
Oh, nice.
Like, the history there really does fascinate me. As a British person, I have researched and I really did enjoy the history. But I don't know why, just the idea of like living in the frontier in a nice little cabin shack, doing my own hunting, having my own little homestead, sounds kind of pleasant.
I
And,
like that. Good choice. Good choice.
I might knit some little assassin hats for my turkeys. There you go, perfect.
I still haven't gone back to AC3 to try and get that little Easter egg. It's when is it when Connor first arrives at the homestead? Is that right? You can trigger that one. Oh, anytime. Okay.
Just go to the barn where you first were, and I triggered it by accident, and you lean on the wall, and then just whistle, and a turkey will run out with an assassin cowl.
Awesome. That's some homework you've set me there.
I first got it, and I was dying of laughter. It was so cute. And I was trying to get the turkey to follow me everywhere because I was hoping the turkey would attack people. It didn't, so I was annoyed that I couldn't have an assassin turkey fighting the enemies.
That would be fantastic.
Just Haytham starts getting on my nerves. Have a turkey. So, I think that's maybe all we've got time for tonight. So, if you enjoyed this episode and you are curious about time travel in Assassin's Creed, you can hit us up on Twitter at AC Let's Talk and at James Sillyquid, or you can email us at assassinscreedletstalk@gmail.com. If you want to correct us on our knowledge of pronunciations and facts about Syndicate,
I'm sure we've made many mistakes tonight. We always want to be corrected. It's good to have a good discussion.
Yes, I am. I have not played half these games in too long. I've got a list of games I want to buy, and the Assassin's Creed games are all on there. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.